All right, everyone, we're on to our third session of the day here in the customer engagement stream. The topic for this third session is storytelling skills for the customer success excellence. This is a 45-minute session with Rick Adams, who is the CEO and founder of Practical CSM.com, and he'll be talking about two fundamental skills: listening and storytelling. Both really important, but sometimes overlooked skills in customer success. So Rick, excited to have you here. Thank you for joining, and I will hand the stage over to you.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. And before I start, I want to say thank you to everyone who's put effort into the customer conference. It's a fantastic opportunity for all of us to get together and to learn from each other, and particularly because it's free. What a wonderful experience for us all. Thank you to the Customer Success Network and to Congress Geeks and everybody else for all your hard work. And thank you for inviting me in to speak. I'm really excited to be talking to you about storytelling skills for customer success excellence. And in fact, we did decide in the end we're going to focus just on the storytelling. We'll do listening another time. So without further ado, let me get on. As was mentioned, my name is Rick Adams. I am the CEO and founder of Practical CSM.com. We do training and consultancy and coaching. So if that is of interest to you, do look us up. But for now, let's take a look at storytelling skills and how that applies in the world of customer success. Have you come across a book called The Very Hungry Caterpillar? Now, my guess is you probably have. And the reason why I'm guessing that is because it is such a massive hit. It was written by a guy called Eric Carle, who very sadly actually died this year. And it was published first in 1969, and over 60 million copies have been sold in over 30 languages. That was how popular this book has been. And I think for many of us, it was aimed at 3 to 5 year olds growing up. It was a book that we loved, and maybe many adults also have enjoyed telling it to their children in turn. So you may well be familiar with it, both because of your own childhood and because of your parenthood as well. The reason why I'm talking to you about it is because it is a great little book. Let me give you a synopsis of the story. Okay, so one day a tiny and very hungry caterpillar is hatched from an egg, and the caterpillar eats a variety of meals over the course of the next few days. It eats its way through 1 apple on Monday, 2 pears on Tuesday, 3 plums on Wednesday. I think you can see where I'm going with this. 4 strawberries on Thursday, 5 oranges on Friday, and it goes on and eats all sorts of other things until eventually it becomes a very big and very fat caterpillar indeed, and actually becomes quite full. At which point it builds itself a cocoon, stays inside the cocoon for a little over 2 weeks, and when it comes out, it emerges as a beautiful butterfly. And sorry for the spoiler, but that is the story of The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And that is it. That's the whole of the story. And it's a very beautiful story for 4-year-olds with so much education in it, counting and days of the week and a little bit of science thrown in and who knows, all sorts of different things. But it's also a very beautiful story from the point of view of storytelling, which of course is why I have singled it out for us to discuss. And I'm going to break it down a little bit. So it's an archetypal story. And what makes a good archetypal story? Well, every story needs a beginning, every story needs a middle, and of course every story has to have an ending. So in our story then, in the beginning, the caterpillar is born and it feels very hungry. And so it's got this mission that it needs to go on to satiate its hunger. The majority of the story is the process, the journey it goes on of satiating that hunger and of growing that it needs to go on to reach its outcomes, its ending, its vision of transformation into something very beautiful indeed. And that, of course, is the beautiful butterfly. So we have an essential mission to go on at the beginning, which is made clear right from the very first go. This caterpillar is very hungry. We have a range of challenges along the way on each day of the week and even after that. And we end with a very clear and vivid vision being fulfilled. Now, of course, you could argue to me that caterpillars are not aware of the future and are not consciously striving towards a vision. They're not on a mission in that sense. And I would say, well, you're probably right. We don't know for sure, but the likelihood is they don't actually unconscious of this. But nature is driving it in any case, so they are on a mission and there is a vision. It's just that they don't know about it. But other than that, I think that this holds very well as a great example of a really strong story that is so obvious that it appeals to, well, I would say pretty much any age. What's of interest is actually the setup at the beginning is really important. We've got to introduce the hero of the story, our caterpillar, and we've got to explain the mission that it's on. Then we've got the journey to go, which is by far the majority of the story, is the challenges that are faced along the way and how they're overcome. And then what we've got to do is resolve the story with a conclusion that is a satisfying conclusion for our reader or our viewer if it's a film, and that is the ending where we actually attain the outcomes that we wanted to attain, or the hero attains their outcomes. And that, again, very, very short, just a page in the book. That is the book. And I would very strongly recommend this book if you haven't come across it before. It's actually beautifully printed as well on thick card, and it's a lovely thing to own and to give as a gift to if you have anyone of that age. So what's happening in this story? Well, effectively what's happening is the caterpillar, of course, is undergoing a journey of transformation, whether it knows it or not. And of course, this is very similar to our customers, right? They also have a vision in front of them and a mission to fulfill. They are undergoing a journey of transformation. And for example, maybe from a boutique hidden in a side street to becoming a high street superstore, or even maybe a chain of department stores or whatever it happens to be. Our customer is undergoing a journey of transformation. They have a vision of the future. They have outcomes in mind. They've got challenges that they're going to need to overcome, but they're prepared to commit if we can explain to them the right story to help them understand how we can help them. Okay, so what does make a good story? Let's unpack it to another level. And the first thing is that we've got to have a vision in our story that appeals to the listener or the viewer. And in this case, what we want to do is we want to use our customer's vision. So we're not going to make up a vision. We're going to go and find out what is our customer's vision, what gets them excited, what are they passionate about, what do they care about, what do they lie awake worrying about perhaps. These are the things we want to ask ourselves, and perhaps we need 3 perspectives on it: the context of the company, the context of the department or function, and the context of the stakeholder themselves. So if we look at it from a corporate perspective, perhaps the vision is around market share, or around innovation levels, or around profitability or share value, for example. In a departmental situation, perhaps it's around improving the collaboration within the team, or increasing satisfaction levels, or being more efficient. And as an individual, maybe it's about getting your bonus, which means you've got to meet your targets. Or maybe it's about getting that promotion, or simply being recognized and applauded by your peers and your colleagues, perhaps. So we've got to know all of that and collect it together to make a really strong vision that we can make sure then is a vision that our customer's going to buy into. So I've mentioned the word outcomes a couple of times, and I've talked about vision. So if this is the vision, what are the outcomes? Let's just clear that up. So the vision is the picture of the world as we want it to be in the future, whereas the outcomes are like the measurable results from being in that world. So, for example, let's say, and why not, that we could say our vision for the future, or our customer's vision, is a strong growing business with happy, loyal customers, and where we're providing market-leading products and services to them. Sounds like a vision I could sign up to. And maybe we could say, well, the outcomes, the things we could measure from that is the number of customers have gone up 25% from where we are now. The CSATs have gone up 22%. The revenues have gone up 35%. And our time to market to launch new products or new versions is down by 20%. That tells me if I hit those targets that I have got my strong growing business, my happy, loyal customers, and I will be providing market leading products and services. So effectively, what we're saying is the vision is like the inspirational part, whereas the Outcomes are like the evidential part of it, the proof that we've got there. But between them, really, we're describing exactly the same thing, just in very different terms. One is we're describing it itself and what it's like, and the other one is we're describing what we will see as evidence when we get there. Why do we want both? Well, because actually our brains work with both. We've got a left brain and a right brain. As we know, the left brain is the logical, mathematical, analytical, scientific part. The right brain is the free-spirited, artistic, sensual, creative, passionate, and imaginative part. And that's very well described here in this great image that I've borrowed from a site at totalyoga.org, which is showing how these two sides of the brain can combine to deliver the whole of the reality that we experience as a human being. And so what we could argue is well, the left brain's like the understanding and the right brain's like the feeling. And if we want our customer to buy in to what we're explaining to them, and we want both of those. So effectively what I'm saying is understanding plus feeling equals knowing. And that's what we want our customer to really know, that this is the vision that is the important thing to us, so that they are paying attention. Because only if the vision is important do we care about the story. So, all right, the vision is the picture of the world. The outcomes are the measurables. I would say in my experience that some customers are clear on their vision, but haven't really got well-defined outcomes. Others are clear on the outcomes, but haven't really thought about the vision. And some have got both, and some have frankly got neither. So before we start thinking about what the story is to tell our customer, we might need to do a little bit of research and also a little bit of helping the customer, potentially as a consultant, to go in there and ask questions and workshop with them to help them to determine, well, what is their current situation? Where do they want to be? And what is the vision and the outcomes of that, to make it as real as possible, so that we know this is where we need to get to, because we can't describe the journey until we know where the end is going to be. So this is so very important. So in summary, from our point of view as a CSM, we could say, well, look, the hero is going to be the customer. They're like the caterpillar, the hero of the story. The mission is going to be our success plan that we build with them, to say, well, you've bought our product. Now we've got to get you from where you are now, unconscious incompetence. You don't even know what you don't know yet, through to conscious competence in using our product, so that you're generating value. And then that will mean that over time, when you're generating value and generating value and generating value, you're getting nearer and nearer towards and ultimately achieving your outcomes, which is the vision. So those are the components of our story that we're going to be explaining to them. And we want their buy-in, because if they accept this, then they're going to be working with us. And if they're going to be working with us, they're going to be owning it. They're going to be helping us to help them to make the maximum success out of the product they've purchased, which is exactly what we want, of course, as an organization. Let's turn to a more sophisticated story. I think we've sucked the lemon dry with the hungry caterpillar. Let's move to something with a little bit more detail in it. So I'm going to pick on the Lord of the Rings as another great example of an archetypal story. And in this instance, again, we're going to break it into our beginning, our middle, and our ending. So in the beginning, as we've said, we need to introduce the hero in the setup. We've got to describe the vision that the hero has and explain the mission that the hero is on, because if we don't get their interest at the beginning, they're not going to be listening through the rest of what we talk to them about. They'll have lost interest. So we've got to get their interest by attracting them to these three components. Now, in the case of the Lord of the Rings, Tolkien has described a simple everyday person, which he's called a hobbit, who lives in a lovely little sort of countryside sort of area, and smokes pipe weed and has parties and generally lives the good life. And in terms of the vision that the hero has, actually, it's a very simple vision. The hobbits don't want diamonds and jewels and to be the king of something. They want to live their free, happy, natural existence, unencumbered by rules and regulations and other people bothering them. That's all they want. And the mission that our hero, Frodo, goes on is he has to travel to Mount Doom and throw the ring into the Lake of Fire. And the reason he has to do that is because their vision of the future will not happen unless he does, because there's these dark forces coming along because of this ring. They're going to take over and they're going to make everybody's life a misery, and everyone will be slaves and they won't be able to have their happy natural existence. So they've got to take this mission on. Reluctant though he is to do so, he's prepared to do it in order to get his vision. So we could ask ourselves, well, does the audience relate to the hero? Yeah, carefully chosen to be something that most people would relate to. You know, Frodo Baggins, you know, a nice chap that anyone would want to be friends with. Yeah, we can relate to the hero. Do we buy into and care about the vision? Well, it's no less than freedom, right? So yeah, absolutely. I think all of us want to be free to be able to make our own choices and live the lives we want to live in. So yeah, I think most people can buy into and care about the vision. And I'm fully behind the hero's mission. Well, if we assume that we believe the story, which is that this is the only way that we're going to be able to save ourselves from being completely overrun by the forces of darkness, well, then of course we have to believe in the mission and get fully behind it. It's got to be done. So there we go. That's how it works in the beginning there. Let's look at this from the perspective, though, of customer success. So in customer success, can our audience relate to the hero? Well, yes, of course they can, because it's them. We're going to make them the hero in our story. The customer, the department, the stakeholder. They are the ones who's going to be going on their journey. So yes, of course they can relate to them because they are them. Can they buy into and care about the vision? Well, yeah, because it's their vision. That's why we did that consulting and researching in the first place, to work out and to some check and validate what their vision really is and what their outcomes really need to be. So of course they can get excited about the vision. It's their vision, as long as we've done our work correctly. Are they fully behind the mission? Well, yes, if we can provide sufficient evidence to demonstrate that the journey that we are suggesting that they go on, which is effectively the success plan that we're going to build with them, is the right journey that will help them to overcome all the challenges and hurdles that they're going to get to effectively onboard and adopt and get good at using our product in order to generate the maximum value from our product in the shortest time period. If they believe in that and if they trust us, then yes, they all get behind the mission, because the mission will deliver on the vision and it's their vision. Okay, so that's the situation at that point. What about the middle then? Well, the middle, if you remember, is the large part, and that's the journey. And of course, Lord of the Rings, it's a very large part. So in this middle part, we describe the challenges our hero faces. We describe how the hero is struggling, ready to give up in most cases. And then, you know, along comes the guide. The guide agrees to help the hero. And the hero perhaps initially is like, no, thank you. I don't want your advice. That's terrible advice. It looks really painful. I'm going to do it my way. And of course, they learn that the more they do it their way, the worse things get. And as they then learn, and so they reluctantly accept their help and eventually agree, yeah, the guide knows what they're talking about. Let's do it the guide's way rather than my way, because then I get the results I want. And that's, you know, really what the journey is all about. It's a journey towards that individual understanding as they go through the story, that what they need to do is they need to do what the guide is recommending. The guide needs to be constant. The guide is always there, ready to provide advice. May not be taken, it may be taken, but we're there to provide good advice. We're constant, we're consistent, we're reliable. And the hero over time learns to trust the guide. The hero starts to rely upon their help. Okay, so let's again look at this now in the customer success sense. So the guide is there to provide advice. That's us. We are the guide. Us, the CSM specifically, and of course our organization is the guide in a wider sense as well. And we are there to show the hero, the customer, what they need to do to maximize the value and get all of the value from the purchases that they've made from us. That is what we're doing. We're not going on our journey. We're not going on a journey to renewal. Okay, we're going on a journey to outcome achievement. That's really important. We don't want them to start thinking we're on our journey. We want them to think that we're on their journey. We're supporting them. We are the coach. We are not the hero. Very important. And because of this, and because they believe that we are the right guide for the hero, which they need to do, and we may need to prove that, and we'll talk about that in a second, the hero learns to trust the guide over the time. Why not? We've been there before. We know the terrain. That's why you choose a guide, right? You choose a guide who knows that city, or who knows that jungle, or who knows that mountain wilderness, right? Why'd you go with that guide? Well, the guide's been there many times. We've been there many times in similar situations, facing similar challenges to get similar outcomes for similar other customers before this one. So we are an experienced guide. Why not employ this guide to help to get the results we want? Of course, they're going to start to rely upon our help if they believe in that. And to believe in that, well, we need their buy-in. We need to maybe share our success proposal. What is it that we're proposing that they do? And we're going to shape that up with their help into a clearly defined success plan over time that we then implement over the journey together to overcome the challenges and to get to the results that we want. So this is the story we're telling them. And of course, every story needs an ending. So again, back to the Lord of the Rings, and eventually our hero faces his worst enemy. But by this time, he's adhering to the advice that he's received. And because of that, he can defeat the enemy. He wins, or she. And the hero has won and can finally rest. No longer required. We can take a back seat. The hero is the one that gets the celebration and the praise. The hero is the one who wins the prizes, attains their vision, and of course, lives happily ever after, of course. But that naturally is only in stories. Okay, in the real world, in a story, we see them, walking off into the sunset, and then the screen fades and the music plays. The story's over. But of course, in the real world, they wake up the next day and it's raining. So there's a new story to be told now. There's a new problem, there's a new challenge. But nevertheless, in terms of the story that we're telling, we've now reached the end. The vision is fulfilled. So again, let's put that in perspective in customer success, in the world of customer success. So where we could say, well, our hero faces his worst or her worst enemy. In real life, actually, it's not usually like that. There is usually a series of challenges, not one great big mountain to climb. It's actually a range of hills. Okay, and we need to understand this, and we need to help them to know, well, which direction do we travel in, which of these do we do first, in what order do we do the rest of them, which are the ones that needs the most resources thrown at them, what do we need to do before to prepare ourselves, all of this stuff that we know. This is what goes into this success plan. And this is what makes us so valuable, is because we know what that success plan should look like, although we need their help, and it needs to be their plan, not ours. They need to own it. Very important. So the advice is adhered to and the enemy is defeated. Well, okay, the best way to make sure that they do adhere to our advice is if they really believe in the journey, and the best way to do that is to demonstrate through case studies and testimonials, through evidence, that we've got to show them, yes, we have been here before, and yes, we have delivered the results for other customers in similar situations, and you can go and talk to them and find out for yourself, and here's a video on it and all the rest of it. So that's how we build that evidence to get that trust that is so important, so that they take our advice. And then the hero eventually is won and can finally rest. And the final part of our message, when we're delivering the story, which is at the beginning of our relationship with the customer, when we want them to buy into working with us, is we want them to really feel this bit. So this is the bit where we said, that the understanding plus the feeling equals knowledge. So we want to make this the vision and the outcomes as accurate, as defined, and as vivid and real to them as we possibly can, and as meaningful to them. We want to use their language to describe it, so that they really want to achieve these objectives that they have got for themselves. So is this just a Lord of the Rings thing? No, it works for many different stories. Another classic example here is Star Wars. Here's Luke Skywalker going on his mission to save the world, and the vision of a peaceful world without the bad guys in it. And in this instance, actually, he ends up with two guides. The first guide dies at some stage, and the second guide takes over. And again, reluctant hero doesn't want to go on the mission, doesn't trust the guides, but learns in the end that that's his destiny, learns in the end to trust the guides, and that is the best way that he can move forwards. Rocky wants to be the heavyweight champion of the world, has a massive vision, a really powerful vision, but gets despondent. It's not working, can't quite cope, can't quite do the right things, ready to give up, but the trainer says, no, 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 I have trained heavyweight champions, I know what to do, trust me, do what I say, and if you do what I say, we'll overcome these hurdles. And the more Rocky doesn't do what the trainer says, the worse things get. But as soon as he realizes this and starts to do what the trainer says, it all comes together, and then in the end takes the advice, wins the final fight, becomes the heavyweight champion of the world. And even going back to, for example, Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol, and here's Ebenezer Scrooge, and here's the guides of the ghosts of Jacob Marley, his ex-business partner, and the ghosts of Christmas past and Christmas present and Christmas yet to come, all guiding him away from being the miserable miser that he is, towards becoming the happy, friendly, giving person who now has a vision of being loved by his family again, and of being a generous, giving person who enjoys work and enjoys working relations with his colleagues again. And that's such a powerful story that it actually changed how we celebrate Christmas in the entire Western world. So that parts of it that were Christian. So go and check that out if you don't believe that. Find out the story about how one book and one person, Charles Dickens, changed how Christmas was celebrated forever. Back to what we're talking about though. How do we apply the concept of the story within our work in customer success management? Well, actually, for me, I got my ideas from a chap called Donald Miller, and this is a marketing book, a very well-known one called Building a Story Brand, and I would recommend that as a great start point for anybody. And this book is obviously, it's about marketing and selling. It's not about customer success, but it is all about engaging customers and telling them a story that's meaningful to them, because it's their story about them. So that was my start point in my journey. The hero is the customer, the outcome is a successful business, and the guide in this instance would be the marketing website or perhaps the salesperson, and the mission is to select the right product. Do I buy yours or do I buy somebody else's? And that is the pre-sales mission, to get to the vision of a successful business by choosing which is the right product to purchase. Okay, so not our world, but fairly closely aligned, because of course, if we look at the post-sale side of things, the hero remains the same, it's the customer. The outcome remains the same, the vision of a successful business, but the guide is now the customer success manager who's taken over from the salesperson, and the mission or the journey is to generate business value from the product that was selected and purchased. And so effectively, of course, we're really talking about one journey from the customer's perspective, from the start, when they encounter the challenge, where they then go through marketing to pick which companies they might be interested in buying their product from, to sales, to select exactly the right product, through to purchase, where they're handed over to us, through the onboarding and adoption processes to get them to where value realization can start, and then through the entirety of the value realization process until they finally attain every single outcome possible. So here's our hero at the top, our customer. Here's our outcome at the bottom, the successful business. And it's like we've got two volumes in our story. So we've got volume one, or part one, where the guide is the salesperson and the journey is to select the right product, and part two, where the guide is the CSM and the journey or the mission is to generate business value from that product. And of course, this is exactly why a good handover is so important, because it's all one vision and the same hero. And this is very similar, isn't it, to something like Star Wars, where we saw that there were two different guides, one at one stage and one at one in the other. We can even get more complex though. And actually, this is the model that I really like. So I'm going to divide, in fact, it into a trilogy now. So part one remains the same. The hero remains the same. It's the customer. The outcome remains the same, the successful business. Part one is still what the marketing and salespeople get up to, the mission to select the right product. Then when we take over, we've got two journeys we want to take our customer on. The first journey is the journey to competence on our product. And that is the onboarding and adoption. So this, we are the CSM, are the guide, and the mission is to manage change within the business, to understand the change, to determine what needs to happen, and then to implement that change within the business such that everybody is now competent and ready to use our product. And then the final part, still us as the guide, now is the mission. Now that we've upskilled them and we've given them the right support and the right training and the right incentives and the right communications messages and the right mental and emotional backing, those users can get on and create outputs from our product and master our product over time and generate business value. So that's our trilogy, just like Lord of the Rings has got a trilogy: the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, the Return of the King. It's one book in 3 parts. Here, exactly the same thing. Hero remains the same, outcome remains the same, 3 parts to the story, 2 of which we are responsible for. So what are the activities? Well, the core activities in part 1 is marketing and selling. The core activities in part 2 is onboarding and adoption. And the core activities in part 3, by far the longest in calendar time, value realization. But if you think about it, if this is a net new customer, that's the case. But once this is a customer, perhaps actually in replacement of the salesperson or with the salesperson, we're going to cycle back at some stage and we're going to be upselling and cross-selling to the same customer. So it's not marketing and selling net new, it's marketing and selling, customer marketing, customer selling, which from our perspective, the CSM may well be involved in. And then also parts 2 and part 3. So we're going on a journey that effectively has no end with this customer. We're cycling always through, perhaps even multiple stories with them at the same time. So that's the reality. So how do we work with the concept of the story within customer success management? Well, here's the whole list of tasks that are ahead of us. We want to research our customers' needs. We want to create an outline success story that we think is the right things based on our experience of having taken similar customers on similar journeys before, and evangelize that to say, this is what you need. You want to get, here's where you are, here's where you want to be, here's how we recommend you go about that process. Work with them to create then the detail in the success plan, work with them to implement that success plan, that's the adoption side of things, and then work with them to generate value, help them to measure the results, report on the outcomes to the business decision makers so they do continue to renew, etc., and refine and improve our own capabilities so that we grow as customer success professionals and we mature as a CS team as well and get better at what we do. So all of this is in my Practical CSM Framework. The CSM framework that I've devised, it has 7 phases in it. It's got the pre-created best practice responses to all of the most common challenges that are going to be faced by a customer success professional on this engagement that is a journey to customer success, documented with step-by-step guidance. It's published in my book, Practical Customer Success Management, at all good bookstores. Grab yourself a copy if you want to. But actually, we've got a free PDF to give away at the end. So if you stay just to the end, and I'll explain how you can get hold of that. But here is the framework in the different phases and how, if you like, the different things we need to do from a storytelling perspective, fit into these phases. So in phase 1, we prepare ourselves for the customer before we even meet them. That's where we obtain the handover from that previous guide, the salesperson. We familiarize ourselves with the customer account. We perform our research and analysis, fill in any gaps, formulate an initial idea for what are we going to go to them and suggest we do? How are we going to help them? Phase 2 then is we go and tell them this story and get their buy-in. We call that commitment. We present them with our ideas. We learn more. We validate stuff. We shape up the success plan with them into a meaningful story. We tell the story. We obtain their buy-in. Yeah, I'll work with you. This makes sense. It's great to have a CSM on board who's been there before, who can help us to get where we need to get to as quickly and efficiently as possible. And then we move to phase 3, which is onboarding. This is where we move them from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. So they're still not good. They're still incompetent. They can't, after onboarding, do a fantastic job with our product, but they know all the things that they need to do to get to that point by the end of onboarding. So that we've provided them with the information they need to build an adoption plan. Then in phases 4 and 5, we do adoption planning. which is the change management piece, and adoption implementation, which is the project management piece. So in adoption planning, we're creating the detail of that journey with the customer. Who's going to be impacted, in what ways, which capabilities, which business functions, which processes need to be updated, in what ways do they need to be updated, what's wrong with them as they are, what do they need to change by, who's going to do that work, who's going to validate that work, who's going to authorize it, where do we need to publish those. How do we communicate what's happening to the different users? Do they need emotional support? Do they need practical support? Do they need both? Do they need training? What type of training? Is it skills based? Is it knowledge based? Is it both? Do they need certification? Who needs training first? In what order should we do this? So all of that stuff can go into our plan. And then once we've got the plan, then we can implement the plan through project management best practices to make sure that the work gets done, it gets done on time, it gets done to the right quality, to budget, etc., and that we're measuring it and making sure that it's all happened correctly. And that then lets the customer arrive at value realization, where they commence the second journey that we take them on, i.e. the third journey in total, which is the journey of generating value. And from this, our start point is to determine what the KPIs need to be, what the milestones need to be, and build a roadmap and start them on this journey. And we're going to maybe have to amend it as we go forwards, because, as I said, this is the one that takes not just days and weeks, but months, years, maybe even decades of continuing to purchase and use our product over time to generate more outcomes, generate more outcomes, generate more outcomes. But of course, over these years, so their strategy might change and their needs might change and the company might grow and it might develop. And so our product can also grow and develop. So we're needing to keep things up to date. And so we continue this journey with our executive business reviews for as long as is necessary in this phase 6 of value realization, generating the progress reports, making sure we're moving towards ultimate outcome attainment at all times, reporting back to the business decision makers until we eventually arrive at the second destination. If we ever do, because as we've said, being a cyclical process, we might actually journey right back to phase 1, and we might be saying let's actually restate this story in different terms with a new vision and with new outcome requirements, and therefore the journey is different, the mission is different, because it's a new mission to meet the new vision. And what we must be doing all the way through is we need to be doing engagement evaluation. So ongoing throughout all of this, we're also checking on ourselves. Are we doing a good job? Are we doing as good a job as we could be doing? Have we done something new that we've never done before that actually worked really well? Can we template that? Can we write it down? Can we share that with our team members so that they can use it in their work in the future, and we can refer back to it for next time as well? Did we do something that we didn't do very well? Can we note that? Can we learn that that's something maybe we need some training on and go back and get some training so that next time we're better at it? So these are the things we need to be considering to up our game. So we're working on ourselves as well as working with the customer on the customer's journey. Okay, so first you've got to write a story, but then you've got to deliver this story, which we do sort of fairly early on in that in the initial phases. Remember, the commitment phase effectively is where we're telling all of this to the customer stakeholder and getting their buy-in and going, yeah, that makes sense, let's do it your way, that sounds great. Okay, so we've got to write the story and then we've got to tell the story. So let's talk about, we've talked about the writing the story, let's talk about the telling the story just briefly. So how do you become an expert storyteller? Well, effectively, you've got to work on a wide range of communication type skills. So when you're presenting, you've got to think about things like your pace, not too fast, not too slow, your clarity, whether you're pronouncing, whether your accent is understood by everybody, the variation, so it doesn't become something that people go to sleep to, variation in speed and pitch, humor where relevant, with care, keep politics out, keep religion out, whether the language level, as well as which actual language, but the level of language is pitched for the audience, and the technicality level, so different for business people, different for IT techies, for example. Timing, overall timing, how long you're going to take to deliver the entirety, but also your timing as you go forward, so that you're making sure that you've got time for everything, and you're making a point and you're pausing. Make it energetic, not dull and lifeless. Your face, your body, how are you using those to assist to get the message across? Pausing between your major points, making sure that the point is taken so that they've got just time to absorb before you move on. And effectively, practice, practice, practice. Just like they say, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. Perform in front of the mirror so you can see yourself doing it. Use a stopwatch and time yourself so that you know how long you take for each part. Maybe record yourself on Zoom. I use that all the time. It's great. So you don't, you just set a meeting, hit record, and have a meeting with yourself. Stop recording and watch it back and learn from that experience. Watch or listen to things like TED Talks or other professional presentations done by really good speakers, and learn some tools and tips and techniques from them. Perform to a friendly audience, get feedback from them. Perform without notes, so that you're released from that, so that you can do the next one, which is the eye contact, the engagement with the audience, so you can check and make sure they're still with you. Here's one that will make you laugh. Pause regularly and invite questions. Sorry, I know we've not been doing that today. The format doesn't work for that. But nevertheless, in a presenting to a customer situation, that would be what I would be doing. And by the way, finally, do use children. They're great because they'll tell you the truth. Okay, they make great critics. Okay, and if you can, try to, if it's an important meeting with an important customer, if you can, try and do a dress rehearsal, performing in the actual or similar surroundings, dressing the way you're going to dress, using the equipment you're going to use, have people there who are going to act as that customer, and making it as real as possible for you, so that it's familiar, so that when you do it for real, you're more comfortable with that situation. Okay, so oops, one too many. So I did promise you that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about. Hopefully we've covered a lot of ground that is useful to you. If you're interested in the free framework PDF, you can see the link there. I've created a bit.ly link for it, so it's bit.ly/CSM Framework. So nice and easy. You've got my contact details there. If you're interested in talking to me about training or consulting or coaching, feel free to do so. And really, just to say once again, thank you to the Customer Conference. This is such a great opportunity for all of us to come together. As I said, there's a lot of hard work I know goes into these things. Lots of people behind the scenes who probably don't get the thanks they ought to get. So thank you so much to all of you, and also to those who've been listening and watching. Thank you for your attendance, and I hope you found this useful. Thank you very much indeed.
That is a really cute baby caterpillar.
It is.
Thank you so much, Rick. This was an awesome session. Has anyone told you you're a great storyteller?
Not enough to make me boast about it, I wouldn't say. No. So thank you for that. I appreciate it very much.
Awesome. Well, fantastic session. Really appreciate you being here and sharing all of this with everyone joining today. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Likewise.
Bye, Rick.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.